My house isn't old, but there are ghosts in it walking around. Ooh. They don't show their face, just make ominous whispering sounds. Ooh. So I let them be. They are just restless like me. I think there's a leak in the roof. Ooh. Now I haven't seen puddles of water, just droplets of dew. So I let them lay. I never minded the rain. Bering Strait in 2006. The band was at the crossroads at the time, and it just seemed like the right time to start searching for my own voice, that of a solo artist. And I've been writing on my own for a while, writing something that was not quite in the style of Bering Strait, something for me. And so in 2007, 2008, I went into the studio in Nashville and hired some of the best Nashville session musicians. But being an independent, I had very strict budget and time limitations. So we ended up recording 10 or 11 songs and mixing them all in 6 days. Which, for those of you who are not familiar with the music production, for an album, it's a very short time. It can be done, and the parts did sound very good because all the musicians are of very high caliber, but I felt like it didn't represent me. As I was growing as a musician and singer, and I put together a home studio, I started getting a little bit of gear and software, and started recording various vocal tracks for various clients. Just to keep my creative juices flowing and to continue working on my craft. And I just kept catching myself thinking, well, why am I doing all these for all those other people and I'm not making my own music? It just didn't make sense. So one day I just grew tired of waiting, and I just took a leap of faith. And here we are. Well, I'm Russian. Need I say any more? Well, you probably, if you've heard, if you've ever read any of classical Russian literature or seen any movies based on it, you probably noticed that Russians have a very close relationship with melancholy, and you could even say that they take melancholy with their mother's milk. So this is something that for a Russian person is easy to relate to. And you know, and personally I think that the songs that really move you, or books that really move you, they have to have a certain amount of sadness in them, because if everything is happy and effortless, where's the drama? Why should I care? Now, if you've gone through this big stretch of bad luck and you came out at the other end of it a winner, now that's interesting, because you've deserved your happiness. I know it's a lot of overanalyzing to put into something as simple as telling a story, but I've found that things that truly move me and stay with me and make me feel like my life is better for having experienced them, they have a little bit of a lesson, a little bit of melancholy, a little bit of struggle, if you say. Hence the sad songs. But I do write a happy song every once in a while, because life is wonderful and I do have a lot to be thankful for. So on this album, there's not going to be just sad songs, I promise you. Hallway is a a title that means a couple of things to me. The main thing it means to me is a spiritual journey, a passageway from where you were before to where you are now. Transition. So to me it's a transition from being a part of a band, Bering Strait, to being a solo artist. It's also a transition from always needing to be with a major label, with a producer to make your music, to finally deciding I've got what I need to make music right now. Another thing that hallway means to me is I actually recorded all of my vocals in my hallway. My hallway is my vocal booth, so literally a hallway is a big part of this album. Baby, going over this, you got your reasons, baby, and they're valid reasons too. And I got just one. It's a god-awful shame I'm not here to place the blame, but it seems such a waste to let it slip away without putting up a fight. It's the God's honest truth. I found my soulmate in you, but you're not anymore, so shut the door and get out of my sight. I believe the song you're referring to is my rendition of a Russian folk song, Ach ty steppe shiroka, which the translation of that title is "Oh you white steppe." And steppe is a long prairie, flat stretch of land. And this song is about a hard life of what's called burlak in Russian. It's a barge hauler. It's basically back in the days a few centuries ago when they would use human labor to pull barges from the river closer to the shore, and usually they would use serfs to do that very hard work. So the song is about barge haulers, their life next to the vast Russian river Volga, and about wide open spaces. My studio, it actually is not any one place, any one room in my home where I do all the work. It actually consists of 3 locations. My living room, where my keyboard is set up, that's where I bring my laptop and I record piano, bass, drums. Then I take my laptop to my hallway, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the place where I record vocals. And so after that, I take my laptop and bring it to the office and transfer it to a desktop computer, and I have a couple of pretty good speakers, and that's where it all comes together, and that's where I try different sounds, and that's where I mix. But there's no reason to stay. Well, I wouldn't call myself a bass player. I've never held a bass in my hands. I'm definitely not a drummer. I've never played real drums. But there's a wonderful thing that I'm extremely thankful for, and it's called MIDI. Basically, if you have your keyboard, you can program just about any kind of sound you want, and if you have good samples to go with it, you can be a bass player and be a drummer and be a flute player and be a violinist. And so technically, yes, I have played every instrument on the album. Oh, there were a few challenges. One of them being I can't play guitar, so I had to be okay with the album not having any guitars on it. And it seems like an insurmountable challenge, but there are ways around it. Because I would always listen for the overall sound, and if there was something missing, if there was a part that I was hearing that usually a guitar would play, I would just have to figure out, well, what other instrument could I have play that part. And sometimes it would be Wurlitzer, and sometimes it would be strings, and sometimes it would be some kind of woodwind, and sometimes it could be mellotron. It could be... there are ways. And if you just use your imagination and just... there's no limit to how far you can go. Another challenge comes from being an artist and a producer wrapped into one. For instance, when I sing, it would be hard for me to... it would be a challenge for me to focus just on the performance as opposed to thinking about meters, whether I'm overdriving the preamp, and all the technical parts of it. But yet I'd have to do that at the same time. And also, with producing your own record, sometimes it's hard to know when to stop. Because there's always other sounds you can try, there's always other ideas you can try. And there can come a point where you do too much. And usually when you have a producer who you trust, who's working with you, they can be the overseer, and they can say this is enough, any more would be not making it better. It actually, less can be more. And the other way around, I can think that it's done, but maybe it's still lacking something. So being my own producer, that was a little bit of a challenge, and a lot of my friends and family members whom I trust had to chime in a time or two. And there's one more challenge. I live in a wooded suburban area. It's not a professional studio that's properly isolated. So there would be a time when I'm singing a vocal to one of my songs, and it's the take, and I'm completely in the zone, I'm inspired, and it feels like I'm pulling out all the emotions I can muster, and they're expressing everything the song needs to express, and this is going to be the take. And then the geese come into the picture. And so you just take a break, you let the geese say their piece, you regroup, and you try to recreate the magic. I hope that the next stage for me is being able to go on tour and share my music with people in different cities, different states, and hopefully collaborations with other musicians, other artists, and hopefully more music and more albums. This is something that I came to America to do. Well, how do I say that? You know, wisdom. I don't consider myself so wise, but how do I say? Don't wait for somebody to create the perfect conditions for you to make music. Make music. That's what is in your heart. That's what your calling is. If you wait for the perfect time and perfect place to make music, it may not happen. And don't let anybody tell you you can't, or there's a certain way it's supposed to work. It can work in many, many ways, and you may carve out your own niche. And if you do it to the best of your ability, put all of your creativity in it, it's going to find its listener.
I hope you float on a stream from a beautiful dream into your beautiful